Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another movie review. Today, I'm taking a look at Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth and final film in the Indiana Jones franchise. Dot dot dot. For now, it's like who knows what they're gonna do in, like, I don't know, 20 years. Maybe they'll reboot it or something. But it's definitely the end for now. Um, so yeah, Dial of Destiny, the fifth Indiana Jones movie. I don't really talk about Indiana Jones too much on my channel, like hardly at all. It comes up like very rarely, like maybe once in a while during a stream as like a reference or something. It's like not it's and then like I've used a clip from Raiders in a review video at one point for like Ratchet and Clank. But that's it. That is it. Indiana Jones has not really come up that much. So just as a precursor, so I love Indiana Jones. I like Indiana Jones a lot. In some ways, I feel like Indiana Jones has kind of been surpassed by franchises like Uncharted. I think Uncharted actually tells that I don't know if this is a hot take or what, but I think Uncharted tells a better story over the course of its several games. It's a Nathan Drake is a more well-rounded, developed character than Indiana Jones, I think. But I don't. But at the same time, I don't think Uncharted necessarily has the same amount of wow factor in some of the things it does compared to, say, The Last Crusade, which I would put Last Crusade over anything Uncharted. I think it's my favorite and arguably the best Indiana Jones movie. So anything of that kind of like Last Crusade is just mwah. It's just a like perfect movie almost. Um, and then Raiders is like a close second. That being said, about overall, I think Uncharted tells a better story in between all of its games, a larger interconnected narrative for Nathan Drake. Indiana Jones is still great. Indiana Jones is still Indiana Jones, and I think that all the movies are good to a certain extent. They have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. I think probably for my tastes, Temple of Doom is maybe the weakest, although it's hardly bad. It's far from bad. It's just because it's the weakest of the bunch. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It feels like the story is just kind of paper thin. Although if you look at that as a first movie, it does kind of give you a good introduction to Indiana Jones as a character and gives him a decent smallish character arc of overcoming the kind of the it's kind of understated, but the whole fortune and glory kid, it's like it seems like he's just doing this for the riches, but it's like no, he's the hero, he's the good guy, he's gonna do whatever it takes to save the day. Um, and then that goes throughout the rest of the movies. So yeah, Temple of Doom has its moments. Raiders, of course, is Raiders. What else do I need to say about Raiders of the Lost Ark? It's a masterpiece. It's like one of the best films ever made. Um, a little lighter in the character department for Indiana. He doesn't really change at all throughout the movie, and of course, the kind of running joke is that he could not be. You could remove him from the movie, and nothing really changes. It's like people. It's like I really, gosh, I hate Big Bang Theory so much, but I see that clip pop up all the time of them like being and them kind of going, oh man, this movie's not as good as we thought about it because it has this one issue. It's like, I don't think that's an issue with the story at all. I think that's just an interesting quirk of it. If anything, it makes the story better because it's you realize how well written it is to the point that if all these different things are moving and it still works even if you remove certain elements to it. It is that joke that you can remove Indiana Jones from the movie and it still works. But it's like, is that necessarily a bad thing? It's like I think it would actually be a very fascinating movie where you follow these obvious bad guys the entire movie, and then they get their comeuppance at the end, and then the Ark of the Covenant is just left sitting on this island for the rest of time. Probably, it's like that's actually a really funny idea to me. And it's like another statement about it's like the whole movie's like a metaphor about how the Nazi ideology was doomed to fail or something like that. That could be interesting. So we're moving Indiana Jones from the movie, and it's still work. It's like I don't think that's an issue with the plot, and it's like and that's kind of like one of those pop culture things that seeped into the or a nerd culture thing that seeped into pop culture, shall I say, where it's like normies know about it. And it's like, okay, yeah. It's like they go, oh, look, I know things about nerd stuff because I know this one thing. It's like, okay, that's very surface level, but whatever. And so yeah, Raiders is awesome. Then we have Last Crusade. I really like Last Crusade. I don't really have too much to say on that because it's, like I said, it's almost a perfect movie. It's my favorite of the bunch. And then after that, we have Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which a lot of people treat in Star Wars prequel level territory. And I'm just like, what are you seeing about this movie that's like downright offensive? I just don't understand it. There's never a moment in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where I go, okay, I can understand how someone doesn't necessarily like that. It's like nowhere in Crystal Skull is there a Jar Jar moment. There is no Jar Jar in Crystal Skull. Now, is Crystal Skull a perfect movie? No, it has its issues. I think that the ending is a teensy bit underwhelming. And like the Mac character is really weird. It's like, I think Mac could have had, I wonder if Mac did have more stuff to do in the movie and then they kind of, and they removed some stuff because like the way he's written out at the end, his ending, it's like, oh, I'll be all right, Jonesy, and he just lets himself get sucked into the portal. Totally falls flat. It's like, was there supposed to be some sort of like if they devoted a little bit more time to his character arc, maybe that could have been like, he's finally going to own up to his mistakes or whatever. It's like, but he really is just this kind of wishy-washy bad guy. So it's like, whatever, he's a whatever character. And then it's like you waste the great John Hurt in this. I'm going to twirl a stick around and just repeat Henry Jones Jr. It's like going to repeat that a whole bunch. It's like, that's kind of unfortunate that they wasted John Hurt. But I mean, the adventure's good. The characters, other than what I just talked about, are good. I like Shia LaBeouf as Mutt Williams. I think he works well. I think he and Harrison Ford have good chemistry. The quote unquote twist that he's his kid, I think works really well. Especially when Indy and Marion are in the sand pit and it's like, oh no, good. It's like, yeah, no, he's a good kid. It's like, he didn't finish school. It's like, oh no, school's not for everyone. You got to do what you got to do. It's like, he's your son. Well, why didn't you make him finish school? It's like, I like stuff like that. It's I think the setting was different for an Indiana Jones movie. Kind of like we got a little bit of jungle in Temple of Doom, but they don't really have like a chase or anything through the jungle. So having the chase through the jungle with the jeeps and everything, and it's like fencing on top of the jeeps as they're moving. I mean, that's straight. I mean, how is that really any different on the absurdity level than what we got with like anything else in the other movies? It's like it all seems very authentic Indiana Jones to me, and and there's never a moment in that movie where I go, this is too much, this is too silly, this is too crazy, considering this is a franchise that it has also had, magic rocks in it, and zombified child slaves or whatever with voodoo magic. It's like there's a line in Dial of Destiny. It's like, I've been tortured by voodoo. It's like, you come back to me when you've been forced to drink the blood of Kali. And it's like, yeah, no, there's some crazy, ridiculous things that happen here. So it's like Crystal Skull, I think is great. The setting it in the 1950s and it being about aliens is perfect for it being set in the 1950s. It makes a lot of sense. Having the Russians be the bad guys, perfect. KGB versus, Americans. I think that all works well. And so I like Crystal Skull. And so then we finally come to Dial of Destiny, which is just okay. I think it's just okay. I think Harrison Ford's giving a better performance here than he gives in Force Awakens as Han Solo. It's like he's good in Force Awakens. It's like it doesn't feel like he's phoning it in. But there is a little bit of knowing Harrison Ford doesn't particularly always care for Star Wars, and seeing it's like, the killing him off is like, well, he's like, okay, I'll come back, but you got to kill me off, is definitely what the contract stipulation there was. So it's really hard for me to remove Harrison Ford as the person versus the performance I'm seeing on screen with Han Solo in Force Awakens and all the background and stuff. Here with Dial of Destiny, though, I don't see Harrison Ford begrudgingly doing a good job. I see Indiana Jones. It's old man Indiana Jones, and I think that works. Indy is good in it. I don't think that the movie like ruined him as a character. Like you see a lot of fanboy outrage online saying, because like there is this tweet that went around a couple weeks ago when the movie came out of like it's like Lucasfilm needs to learn that we don't want to see all our heroes old and sad. And I'm like, was Indiana Jones really sad in this movie? He was old, yeah. Tired, sure. But I don't necessarily ever think he was quote unquote like sad and depressed, which is funny because that's definitely what the movie was trying to do. But he's leaping from one action set piece to another, and is like he's never reluctant to get back into the fight, and I think that is the distinction here between Indiana Jones and say Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, that a lot of people are pointing to as an example of this, that we don't want to see our heroes old and sad. It's like, yeah, I mean, he's not in a great place when the movie begins, but he immediately answers the call to action. There's no hesitance. He's like, all right, I guess I'm going on another adventure. He punches guys in the face. He's not, it's like, I think he straight up kills that one CIA guy by dropping all the bookshelves on him or whatever. It's, and it's like, I'll get to that in a minute. But it's like, I think, this is authentically Indiana Jones, and I think it's a decent enough send-off for this character. I even like the idea of the ending where he gets to go back in time and so I think anyone like this, expert on history, I think anyone would like be tempted to stay there. But Helena is correct in that there is things back for him in 1969, despite the things that have happened in his personal life. And that's why, and it's the stuff, it's kind of the small details, which is why I'm just going, this movie is just okay and not good. It's certainly not bad. It's competently made. There's never a moment in this movie I'm like, how the heck did that pass by the editors or anything like that? Like with Transformers, where I'm like, okay, that lip sync was off. This is definitely, this feels like a full, complete movie for the most part. As compared to Transformers, where it's like, wow, they really cut this thing to death. And it's like, and now that we've got all these deleted scenes with like transit and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, no, we needed all these deleted scenes back in the movie to make it feel like a more full movie as compared to what we got. But Dial of Destiny, it does feel more like a full, completed, finished movie. It's okay. It's serviceable. It's not bad. And so it really is a lot of some of those small details that I'm just like, you could have maybe done this better. And it's like, not that it's bad, but you could have definitely focused more. It's like not even focus more attention, but just change up the details slightly. And I think everyone immediately clicks and they get it. And it kind of maybe works out better. For instance, one of my head scratchy things about this movie is kind of what was the point of it's like, and it's never explained that well, but like the security detail that Voller had with him, it's like there is that woman, it's like, I mean, were these guys CIA? It's like, I don't understand what their mission was. It's like, it seemed like they were simply a security detail for Voller for the parade, since he was like one of the top NASA physicists or whatever. And then I know that, so I know that he's kind of manipulating some of them, and then like others are firmly in his pocket and they're going rogue. But like, what was there? But it's like, what was the beginning point to get them to be investigating? Maybe they explained this and I didn't catch it, which is possible because I know like they were. Because they had a file on Helena, and she was going around, and they're like, "Oh, we've been tracking her." It's like, but why were they tracking her? It's like because she was looking for this artifact, and Voller wanted it too. It's like, how does Voller get these people to start hunting? It's like it's like an official CIA operation. Well, and they never even clear up if they're even CIA. Indy guesses they're CIA, but they never really confirm, and so it's like, So the and the woman who ends up being like the one good guy left on the team before they kill her or whatever, when Voller's in the middle of going rogue, it's like I don't really understand what her point of the movie, what her purpose of the in the movie was. It's like, because she's kind of killed off unceremoniously, and it's like there's never ends. And like now, if she had done a thing where it's like if she had realized she was on the wrong team and like she gave Indy and Helena a clue, and she's like, I'm going to stay with them to like get dirt on him, and it's like to try to tip you off, and then like she's immediately killed afterward, and that was a big mistake on her part. Fine, I would understand that, but otherwise it just really seems like she doesn't really do anything, and then she gets killed. So I'm like, okay, what was the point of this character? And I think you could kind of remedy some of that by just changing up who the bad guys are a little bit, because the main bad guys in this movie just straight up the Nazis again. It's like, can we, to some degree, I just want to be done with the Nazis as villains in these movies. It's like I don't understand why it couldn't be the Russians again. Is the reason it wasn't the Russians again because you did them in Crystal Skull, and we went to like retcon everything that happened in Crystal Skull because fanboys complain about it on the internet, because that's what we as movie studios do nowadays. Even though if we stick to our guns and we can have a more solid narrative to work on here. It's like that just really irritates me whenever something comes out and there's not really anything actually wrong with it, but then fanboys complain because fanboys are always going to complain, and then they decide that instead of doing it again and like tweaking it or reworking it or something like that, they just decide to wholesale toss it out the window. Like for instance, Mutt being dead in this movie. It's like he went to Vietnam and he got himself killed. Honestly, I think that works. I don't really have an issue with that, other than the obvious reason why they did it is because no one liked the character. Some people would point to Shia LaBeouf not really being an in actor right now, and that being the reason for it. But I don't know. I feel like it's probably just because people complained. It's like how by the time we get to Revenge of the Sith, Jar Jar is just not in these movies anymore, and like his role gets less and less substantial as the prequels go on because people complain. So instead of Lucas sticking to his guns, it's like okay, people didn't like this. I guess we'll just remove him eventually throughout these movies. And we'll sprinkle them in Clone Wars here and there. It's like not that it's like, I mean, it's a little different because Jar Jar really does legitimately annoy people. But it's like I don't really think there's actually anything wrong with Mutt Williams as a character, as for his role in the story. Or it's like, so people complaining about him, it's like this is just people complaining to complain. I feel like I don't understand the arguments for. I don't understand the arguments against Mutt Williams. I'll say that. But that being said, killing him off in between movies, aside for the obvious reasons why they did it, because people complained about him, it's like I don't think that's a terrible idea, and it does work for Indy's story in this movie. So I don't really have an issue with that. But I do have kind of an issue with the bad guys not being the Russians this time around, because it would be so perfect for them for it to be. It's like it's the space race, for Pete's sake. And that's another issue I have with this movie, is that it stops feeling like it's in the 1960s after like the first act, because the first act is very, we're going to the moon, here's some, and it's like it's the space race. It's very much rooted in, it's a protest about Vietnam. But then after that, it really does, like, this could have, it's like with the weapons they're using, the cars, it's like it feels like in a lot of cases it could just be, in the locations they're going to, it could just be the 1940s still. I mean, I suppose the fashion's a little more 1960 than 1940, but it doesn't really scream Cold War 1960s like Raiders screams 1930s pre-World War II Nazis, or Crystal Skull screams Cold War 1950s with the Russians and everything. So I feel like you definitely could have made the bad guys the Russians again. And Voller could have overall still been the main bad guy, and he could have still been a Nazi. Because I definitely could have seen a version where you've got all these Russians, these KGB agents that are working with Voller, and to get him to defect to the Soviet Union or whatever, so they can, or maybe like at this point they're just out on a revenge plan, because it's like, well, there's not really any point for us to perfect our space program at this point, because oh, no, wait, now I remembered what I was thinking. It's like it's like because I was just thinking I was totally forgetting about the MacGuffin. It's like it would totally make sense. It's like, okay, the United States has beaten the Russians to the moon. They've won the space race. It would and everything. I think it would totally make sense for the Russians to infiltrate the U.S. and recruit Voller and to get this thing, so they can go back in time and like steal the plans to the bomb. It's like steal the plans to the nuclear bomb and build their own version before the U.S. can use it on Japan in 1945. I think that, and it would be. It also is still be. It would also kind of be funny if they did that, considering Oppenheimer comes out this weekend as well, and so it's like the movies are like a month apart. They have a lot to do with nukes or something like that. I think that just on paper immediately is a more interesting and timely idea for the plot compared to what we got, where it feels kind of removed from the time frame in which it's set. I just think that, and then it's like the idea is that, okay, we've got this device now, we're going to go back to 1940 whatever and steal the nuke plans, and then Voller betrays the Russians and he says, no, actually we're going back to 1939 so I can kill Hitler and take over Nazi Germany, and the Nazis can win the war, and that kind of being the final twist at the end. That seems great to me. It's like, and again, what we got is very similar to that, and I don't necessarily have a huge problem with it. It's just a little underwhelming. It's like you could make like one or two small tweaks to it, and it would have been a little more punchy for me. But that being said, I think Voller's maybe the best villain in the Indiana Jones movies? Question mark? Because I don't think the villains have ever really been the strong suit of Indiana Jones. It's been the adventure and the MacGuffin they're chasing and the locations and the time period and everything. The villains have always been not some. Well, I think Mola Ram is kind of lame. He's scary, but that's about it. We don't really know a whole lot about him. Mola Ram is just really lame. Belloc is standard. It's like, oh, it's like, you're just like me type villain. Then Donovan, it's just a rich guy that's in over his head. And then Ilsa from Crystal Skull, I actually really like her a lot. I think she's it's like she's intimidating. It's like I like Cate Blanchett's Russian accent and the overall look, which they straight up copied for Governor Price in Star Wars Rebels, which I'll always find funny. And it's like her sword fighting skill. It's like that's just cool character traits. But even then, she's still more of a just a straight up villain. Nothing really that special about her. Voller, though, it's like he's this ex-Nazi working for the U.S. On the space program. He wants to go back in time to change things. And it's like, and Mads Mikkelsen, oh my gosh, he's just such a great actor. It's like just instantly charismatic. You can tell it's like there is that conversation with the butler, or not the butler, but like the hotel staff guy that comes in to deliver the room service, and Voller's just being straight up racist to him. It's like, oh, your kind would have never, your kind did not win the war. It's like Hitler lost. So there's a difference. So not only is he being an evil German, but he's also being kind of racist to this guy. So it's like they're. I think he did a really good job with Voller, and but the thing though is that he is intimidating. He does do a lot of I'm a bad guy, ha 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 ha. But at the end of the day, he's also just kind of a sad little nerd, and I do kind of like that, because like he's kind of too full of himself for his own good. Because at the end of the movie, he's like, no, I know where we're going. We're going to 1939, and then Indy like immediately figures it out because he's just smarter, and it's like he may not be a physicist, but he's like, oh hey, did you account for continental drift? Otherwise, we're not going where you think we're going, and then they end up in like whatever BC in ancient Greece. or I guess it would be not so ancient Greece, because if Rome was around at the time, I can't remember the exact history of it, but so that was kind of fun. Um, and then so I do kind of like that he really just straight up got his math wrong. It's like math screws everyone over eventually, so because math sucks. But so I did like, so I think he's maybe the best villain of the series. I definitely have good things to say about this movie. So yeah, Voller, I did like him as a villain. I just kind of wish that, his posse he's running around with were Russians, and that was the plan that he ends up betraying. So that just would have been a little bit more impactful for me, and felt more in period, rather than it feeling kind of disconnected afterward. What else? Helena Shaw was fine. I didn't really have a major issue with her. I think I think she was a character that definitely could have tiptoed the line of gone over to end up being annoying, but I think overall she was perfectly fine. She's definitely not worthy of headlining her own series on Disney Plus, like it seems like was the plan that they have now canceled. So I will agree with that not being the correct direction to take her. It's like to take that. If they do anything regarding Indiana Jones in the future on Disney Plus, it needs to be an animated TV series. That's what it needs to be. Imagine a kind of a Batman the Animated Series style 2D dark colors, action packed, serialized. It's 10 to 15 episodes a season, with like two or three adventures sprinkled in between, 5 to 6 episodes each. Maybe you could get Harrison Ford back. That kind of style TV show, and it's a lot of Art Deco for like cities and stuff. It's like definitely set in the 30s and the 40s. It's like I think that could be like really really cool. You could have it could jump around the timeline. You could have one set in the 50s, and like you bring in an adult short round and get Harrison Ford and that guy who we know is short round, but I can just never pronounce his name correctly, so I'm not even going to attempt it. Like get them back together, even if it is just in the recording booth. That could be cool. It's like I think that could work out really really well. I think that could be really cool. So if they're going to do anything Indiana Jones on Disney Plus, I think it needs to be that. Definitely not a Helena Shaw spinoff. And I'm also kind of disappointed they didn't mention Short Round at all, because Helena and her little kid sidekick are straight up it's like, oh yeah, he tried to steal my purse, so I ended up taking him under my wing because he didn't have anyone else. That was Indy with Short Round. It's like beat for beat exactly the same thing, and he doesn't mention it's like, oh, I had one of those too or anything. It's like that's it. So yeah, it worked, but I mean overall, I just didn't really. There wasn't anything that really wowed or wooed me the way I feel like an Indiana Jones movie should. Other than the opening with de-aged Harrison Ford. It's like that was actually the most. I was like, honestly, if the movie had ended right there, it's like at the end of that, and it's like, all right, that's your movie. I'm like, it was like 20 minutes longer. But I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that, because it felt like it told a better beginning, middle, and end, satisfying payoff conclusion than kind of the main movie. Because it's like, as you had the callbacks, like, to the winner go the spoils, and he punches the Nazi off the train. It's like, that was cool. How Voller didn't die from getting smacked in the face by that thing with how fast the train was moving, I don't know. His head should have come off, but it's Indiana Jones. It's it's one of those things you gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit. So the opening was good. I did the thing where it's like the anti-air turret gets hit by the bomb, and then it swings and it starts lighting up the train and shooting all the Nazis crawling on top of it. That was awesome. It's like, so, but that was really cool. I really liked that. But then it's like after that point, everything else is like, this is run of the mill. I've seen stuff like this before. It's not really all that exciting. I will rescind that, except for the car chase in Morocco. I thought the car chase in Morocco was pretty thrilling and exciting, and like jumping between the tuk-tuks and everything. That stuff was cool. But after that, it's like diving. It's like it was too dark. I couldn't see what was going on. That could have been a projector issue with my particular theater. I don't know. going back in time, that was interesting, but there wasn't really anything overall that thrilling or exciting about it like they could have done. Um, then and then like the actual tomb of Archimedes was like kind of disappointing as it was very small. It's like there's always this grand scale to everything in the other movies, and that stuff is kind of felt a little small. I mean, I suppose it was kind of hidden in plain sight, but it wasn't really anything to write home about there. Um, so yeah, I mean, it certainly was not bad. I just don't really have too much to say about it because it was just it was okay. It was meh. It was and to a degree with like the other movies having been as exciting as they are, maybe that's not great that the movie was just meh and it should have been more. But I mean, it's an 80-year-old Harrison Ford in an Indiana Jones movie, and it wasn't terrible, so I'm kind of satisfied and okay with that. It certainly didn't live up to the original three. A lot of people argue Crystal Skull didn't do that either, but I don't think Crystal Skull's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. Overall, I don't know. I feel like as good a job as James Mangold did, I just feel like it just lacked a lot of that Spielberg magic, which is just kind of unfortunate. And it's like when I heard that when the report came out a couple years ago, and it's like Spielberg's not going to be directing the movie, it's like my expectations went way lower. So the fact that I am probably just like yeah that was fine is probably because I set my expectations low to begin with. It's like, oh, it's not Spielberg. It's like, well, this feels kind of wrong to do this now because he's directed all the others. So. But yeah, no, it was perfectly okay. As I guess we'll see how big a bomb it is at the box office because with nearly $300 million budget, yikes! That's a steep climb ahead of them to at the very least make their money back, let alone turn a profit, which I don't think they're going to do, especially with how other movies have been doing this season. And Oppenheimer and Barbie are next week, and then of course Mission Impossible is out this week. So I mean, it's just kind of a big ask for all these tentpole movies. I think this is, and then now we've got the writers and the actors guild strikes going on right now. I think Hollywood is in for some changes, and it's going to be interesting to see how what some of these changes are, so that way we can mitigate risks while also being creative and making good products. I say we as if I'm part of it. It's like, no. I run a YouTube channel. I'm very different from all of them. But it's like, it'll be interesting to see how they respond to movies not doing well this summer because there's too many of them, arguably, and we're in a recession and inflation's going crazy and it's just people can't go to the movie every weekend. And unfortunately, Indiana Jones will be a casualty of that, even though the movie was not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. Maybe a little disappointed that I'm not like over the moon about an Indiana Jones movie, but it's I feel like just there's been several movies that have just kind of been meh this summer. It's like Transformers was meh. This was meh. Hopefully Mission Impossible will like blow my socks off. And I mean, the last like two or three have blown my socks off. So I guess we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that's pretty much kind of my thoughts on Indiana Jones for now. I don't think I'll do a second review of this one. I think I am, and I don't think I'm going to do a second one on Transformers after all, because I just saw those deleted scenes and I saw it. I did see it again for a second time though, and it did just kind of reaffirm my thoughts. Like, yeah, no, they should have thrown some of those deleted scenes in there, shifted it around to make the movie feel a little bit more complete. But other than that, it's like I didn't really have anything else new to say about it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Indiana Jones, and I will see you guys later for another movie review down the line. So thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.